Hello friends, and welcome to today's video where we're doing the history of 17. So if you don't know, I posted a video like 2 weeks ago that was just the history of Astro. I went through the history of Astro, and now we're doing it for 17 because 17 is like the oldest group that I stand since debut, and they're coming back very soon, so I figured we might as well do them. I forgot to mention this when I was actually filming my intro, so coming back to correct some things. This video is inspired by the YouTube channel Smoky Glow and her evolution of series. I think it's a great series. I will be linking her channel and the playlist in the description so you can check that out. I can highly recommend the channel. I think it's great. I think she's a great YouTuber. I just adore her content, and she is really what inspired me to make this video. So I do want to make that clear that this is not like a fully original idea. I basically took her concept for YouTubers and applied it to K-pop. So yeah, her channel and her links will be down in the description. So before we get into it, funny story, because I threatened I'd tell it. When I got into 17, it was really early into when I got into K-pop, and it was back in the days where I basically just let one of my friends dictate who I would be getting into. Like, if she was like, oh, I just got into this group, I'd be like, okay, great, I'll get into them. That's how it worked for a little while. Maybe it's just a me thing, I don't know. But anyway, she had just gotten into 17, right? So she was telling me one time, I remember vividly, we were sitting in the Starbucks drive-thru that's currently across the street from where I live now. But we were sitting in that drive-thru line, and she was telling me about 17, right? And she's like, they're called 17, they have 13 members. And then she talks for like another minute, and she's like, guess how many members there are? And I was like, 13. And she's like, how did you know? And she starts losing her mind. And I know this story is only funny to me, and I don't care because it's my channel and I can tell it if I want to. Anyway, just like with my Astro video, I will not be doing every single group activity or every single solo activity because, oh god, no, that sounds horrifying to get through. But no, we're doing the biggies. So we do like comebacks, we do concerts, that kind of thing. The biggies, you get it. But yeah, not doing all the solo stuff. Also, I am aware the members are in hip-hop unit, performance unit, and vocal unit. If I call them a rap unit and dance unit, just know I mean hip-hop and performance, okay? Like, I know they're not actually called that, but that's what I've always called them, so that's what I will continue to call them. But, while we're on the topic of the members, let's get into the members. So first up, we have Scoops, aka Sungcha. He will be called Scoops because I love calling him Scoops. Anyway, Scoops is a rapper. He's the leader of the rap team, the hip-hop team, and also just the group in general. He's one of the, like, OG Pledis trainees, and is in the newest Face music video as the bully, which has never not made me laugh whenever I've watched the Face music video, or just that clip of it. I think it's so funny. Next, we have Jonghan. He's a vocalist and was at one point in time, at least debut era, the obligatory long-haired boy of the Pledis group. And I'm not even kidding when I say that's how I learned who he was at first. Like, I got into 17, I only knew Jonghan as the long-haired one. Not even kidding. It's sad, but it's true. Our final 95 liner is Jisoo, aka Joshua. He is a fellow Capricorn bestie. He's from LA and he's a lead vocal. Next, we have the most beautiful member of the group. You can fight me on this. I don't care. It's true. It's June. June is the most beautiful member. But June is one of the two Chinese members. He's the lead dancer, and fun fact, was a child actor in China. Next, we have Hoshi, aka Sunyoung, even though I never call him that. He is Hosh to me. But he is the leader of the performance team. He is the lead dancer, he's a dancer, and he is the lead vocalist of the group. He also does a lot of choreography for 17. I think that's really cool, and has a thing with tigers, so just keep that in mind. Our next member is Wonu. He was born on my half birthday, so I love that for me. He is a rapper, although he does also sing sometimes, and I really like when he sings. I think he sounds really good, so hooray for Wonu. Time for my little 5'2" king, Lee Ji-hoon, aka Uji, or Woozy, if you want to have some fun with it. He is the leader of the vocal team. He is technically, I think, a main vocal, but not really. He also produces like every single 17 song there is. I counted at one point and it was like 90%. He literally produces pretty much every single song they have. If you listen to a 17 song, odds are you're giving him money because he probably produced it in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, he's tiny, and for some reason people think he looks like Yoongi from BTS for reasons that baffle me, even though he's literally my favorite member of this group. I don't see it. I literally think it's just because they're both short and had pink hair at the same time. But whatever, that's the lore for him. Our next member is DK, aka Dokyeom, aka Sakmin. Why does he have two stage names? Lord only knows. I couldn't tell you. I have no clue. But anyway, he is the main vocal, and I've seen 17 live 3 times, and I am to this day bitter that they've never done Boom Boom in my presence, which means I've never seen them all dance around him while he screams his soul out. It's irrelevant to knowing who he is as a person. I just wanted to mention it. Next, we have probably the most famous member, which is Mingyu. He's technically a rapper and is part of that 97 line crew thing. He's also the face of the group and hosted Inkigayo for a bit. Our final 97 liner is Ming Hao, aka The 8, but I will only be calling him Ming Hao because I don't love his stage name. Anyway, he is the other Chinese member. He is the lead dancer and was actually the dance mentor and idol producer. Unfortunately, not the season I watched. Next, we have Seungkwan, my almost birthday buddy. He is the main vocal and one of the only members to actually get to go on variety shows and like be a cast member on variety show. 17, in spite of the fact they have 1 billion members, doesn't do a ton of solo shit. Seungkwan is the real exception to this. He's gone on variety shows. He's been on a bunch of them. He's won some entertainment awards, so hooray for Seungkwan. Our penultimate member is Hansel Vernon Tre. He is the main rapper, went on Show Me the Money 4, and made the iconic statement that kidney function is not a right, it's a privilege. Last but not least, we have Sir Ichan, aka Dino. He is the main dancer, sub-vocal, and sub-rapper, although he doesn't really rap anymore. Like, he does sometimes, but not like he used to. Now he's much more vocal than rapper, but whatever. He's a dancer mostly. He does also some choreographing along with Hosh, and was the first idol I ever got into who is younger than me, which sent 16-year-old Simon spiraling into an existential crisis. Okay, we made it through the members. I'm sorry it wasn't as in-depth as my Astro video members thing. There's literally twice as many members. I don't have the energy or the phone storage to give you in-depth analyses for each member. We also don't have props for everything. I should have mentioned this earlier. We don't have props for everything because A, I don't collect 17 like I do for Astro. I have every version of every Astro album they've released. I have a couple albums from 17 where I have all the versions. Unfortunately, one of them is an ode because I'm a shill, I guess. I don't know. But I don't have all the versions, and I don't have all the albums, and I don't keep out the inserts, and I didn't feel like going through all my albums to pull out inserts for every comeback because that felt like way too much work and it wouldn't have been worth it. So we don't have as much content. So you're going to see a lot of my coffee cup. I hope you're ready for that. Okay, we can now begin the pre-debut section of this video. So 17's big chunk of pre-debut content is 17 TV. It's basically just a little behind the scenes show. It goes way back to 2013. I have not seen all the episodes because I do not have that much free time, but it's like a lot of behind the scenes stuff from what I recall. It's cute. It's like a little dance practicey stuff. It's cute. It's wholesome. It's what you would imagine very old pre-debut content to be for a group that wouldn't debut for 3 years. Their other pre-debut show, yes, there were 2, was 17 Project. This is the one I watched to get into them, and I have, like, no memory of what the base conflict of this show was. I think it was just that if you don't do this, you don't get to debut, but I don't remember what this was, and I went to watch it, and I spent 30 seconds trying before I realized I couldn't find it and that I didn't care enough, but there was some conflict. What I do remember, however, is at the end, when all the members' parents come out to give them back their rings, the company took away their rings, it was a whole thing. Literally, it fucked me up. I was bawling my eyes out on vacation with my family watching this episode because it had me emotionally scarred. So following the trauma of 17 Project, 17 would officially debut on May 26th as Pledis' second ever boy group. They debuted with the album 17 Carat, which I have a copy of right here, and the song Adore You. This song is great, the album is a moment, but the packaging for this album is the worst I've ever seen. I have nearly 400 albums, that's an impressive feat. Anyway, this debut did very well, all things considered. They got up right off the bat gaining momentum, gaining a good amount of fans. It wasn't an IVE moment, but it did do very well. 17 would swiftly return in September with the release of their second mini-album, Boys B, and the title track, Manse. This song and Adore You are what I have deemed banger pop. It's basically imagine pop, and then imagine the vibes of pop that are going for like a banger song. That's what they are. I am also 99% sure there was beef about this comeback because the money for it was supposed to be used for an after-school comeback that literally has never materialized. But Whatever. I couldn't find anything about it. I swear to God it was true. You're just gonna have to take my word for it. But like, it was a thing. I swear to on my life it was a thing. Either way though, Pledis definitely made a better investment in giving 17 a comeback, because this album went on to be the 12th best-selling album of 2015, which is unbelievably impressive when you look at the artists who outsold them, which were like EXO, Girls' Generation, TVXQ, Big Bang. Like, it was a lot of the like very established artists, and then 17. In November of 2015, members Scoops, Jun, and Hansel released a collaboration little digital single moment with A-Lee. It is entitled Q&A, and I completely forgot it existed, which is really weird because I really liked this song when it came out. Like, I remember bopping to her, and I listened to her again when I was making these notes, and she still holds up. Like, I don't know why I forgot about her, so I have no excuse. I'm sorry. Also in November, 17 would host their first official fan meet, and then follow that up in December with their first official solo concert entitled Boys a Wish. Okay, it is time for our 2015 retrospective. If you didn't watch my Astro video, first of all, please go watch it, but you don't have to. It's up to you, obviously. But I liked to end every year for that video with a little retrospective moment just to talk about sort of big picture things that changed, because if I'm giving you every little detail, or even the more important details, it's harder to keep track of the big picture trends, so that's kind of what this section is for. Cool? Cool. So 17, 2015, pretty important year for them. They debuted, obviously, but there was more to it than that. 17 and 2015 saw a level of success that was pretty much reserved solely for big three groups upon debut. Like, obviously you had the handful of exceptions, but for the level of album sales 17 was having, like, at the time, nowadays you have IVE, you have Kepler, you have Gravity, you have these groups from not major companies still selling 100,000 copies with their debut album easily. That wasn't a thing in 2015. Like, 2015, the best-selling album was Exodus with like maybe 1 million, but even then, that was like the exception. The whole, like, you were not having albums like crazy selling like they are now. So while 17 was releasing their first physical album, here are some of the other groups that were releasing their first physical album. Red Velvet, iKON, Twice, and 17. Those four, 17 sold the best. 17 had one of the best-selling debut albums of 2015, and like I said, Boys B sold even better. 17 basically debuted with this sort of trajectory that was just shooting off, especially in terms of album sales, and that doesn't slow down at any point. 17 has really always been very much powerful when it comes to album sales, and that really did start from debut. Another thing I want to talk about here really quick before we move on is 17's moniker as self-producing idols. Nowadays, you see a lot of groups that have members writing songs, like most groups nowadays will have at least their rapper, if nothing else, write the song, or at least take part in writing the song. 17, while that is true, there's one key difference that I do want to point out, first of all, which is that they don't just write their raps. Like, 17 members write pretty much in its entirety every song, with the exception of Bumju. He is pretty much the only person who's consistently written 17 songs that isn't a member of the group. Like, their titles might have the occasional help, and their debut album does have some help, but really starting with Boys Be On, they did not have a ton of outside writers. It was really just the members. And another thing that's important for this little moniker is the fact that it didn't stop with the music. As I said when I was going over the members have been choreographing. They've been doing a lot more than just writing lyrics. Jun produces all the songs. Like, as a whole, 17 is just a lot more involved in their music creation and their comeback process than most groups are. And I think that's really cool. All right, into 2016 we go. The first thing we have from 17 in 2016 is when Vocalon would collaborate with singer Yoon Jung-shin to release a monthly digital single song. It's called Chocolate. I've heard it maybe once so far. Society as a whole didn't really care, and we're just gonna move along. So after that, in February, 17 would host some encore concerts for their 2015 concert. It was just 2 more shows. It was a low moment. But also, literally the day after that concert, 17 would be the latest group to take part in the One Fine Day franchise. If you missed the One Fine Day era, it was basically just this variety reality show thing that a bunch of groups did, where it was just your standard reality show. They would basically just have behind-the-scenes content of the members. It was your standard show. Envision any one of these shows. That's what it is. They're all really the same to me. I'm sorry if you couldn't tell. But yeah, 17 would be the latest group to take part in it. On April 25th, 17 would release their first full album. This is the repackage. It's close enough. I don't care. But 17 would release their first full album, Love and Letter, along with the title track, Pretty You. This album was their first #1 album on the Gaon charts, and since I don't want to say it every single comeback, from this point forward, literally every album is a #1 album. So just keep that in mind whenever I'm talking about a comeback. If they release an album in Korea, it is a #1 album, okay? Okay, cool. So, as I said, first full album obviously has more songs than a mini, and 17 took full advantage of the longer track list to play around a lot more with the member combinations for their songs. While their minis all had a vocal line, rap line, and performance line song, the difference is with this album, you had a lot more interesting songs. Like, you had duets up to like 8 members with just combinations that I personally wouldn't have thought of, other than maybe like a Seokjin Seungkwan duet. Like, that one is pretty standard to guess about, but like, it was really interesting combinations. I really liked it. I think it's great for bigger groups to do this. I want a lot more groups to do this, but whatever. And the song also, the title track Pretty You, did very well. It peaked at number 11 on the Gaon charts. It got them their first ever music show win on Show Champion. And if you want to watch the members bawl their fucking eyes out, watch a clip of them getting this first win. I'm warning you now though, it literally scarred me in 2016 when it happened. Like, I watched the clip when it happened and I was traumatized, so just be warned. But if you want to watch them like losing their minds sobbing, go find the clip. Love and Letter was followed by the repackaged version, Love and Letter Repackaged. It's a boring name. I wish they named it something else, but I'm not in charge of marketing at Pledis Entertainment, so I didn't get a vote, unfortunately. But the album had 5 new songs, including our first ever solo song, which was Jihoon's Simple. And it also had the title track, Aju Nice, or Very Nice. I only call it Aju Nice. This song, it didn't get any music show wins. However, nowadays, I would say this is one of 17's most well-known songs and just most popular songs in general. The song is, again, very popular from what I can tell. And personally, I'm sick of it because they performed the chorus for 5 straight minutes when I saw them live in their concert, and it destroyed the song for me. Get ready for a lot of coffee content, and by that I just mean staring at my coffee mug, because I don't have another album from 17 until You Make My Day, so just... that's your little warning. You're gonna not be getting a lot of visuals here. Cool? Cool. So pretty much as soon as the promotions for Aju Nice were done, 17 went on their first official tour. They toured around Asia. I do not live in Asia. I don't really care about this tour, but it did happen, so it gets to be mentioned. Also, following the tour, we have our first ever unit single, which is when Rapline released Check In. This song is, unsurprisingly, a bit more rap heavy than their prior titles. It's not for me, but people seem to like it. Closing out 2016, we have the release of 17's third mini album, Going 17, not to be confused with The Show, which we will get to. But the album continued their fall's trend of just experimenting with the lineups for the songs. It had a lot more songs than your standard mini, which I appreciated. The album also became their first to clear 200,000 copies sold, which is very impressive for the time. Like, nowadays, you sell 200,000 copies, it's like, like a bunch of groups do that. Back in 2016, it was a lot more impressive. I feel like I cannot stress that enough when I talk about the album sales numbers for 17. Like, what they were doing at the time was a lot more impressive than it would be now. Got it? Great. The title track, Boom Boom, also did quite well. It got them even more music show wins and charted relatively well. So as a whole, it was just a very successful comeback. Okay, 2016 retrospective time. So while I said 2015 saw the trend of 17 becoming a major player in terms of album sales, 2016 solidified that. It got them their first few #1 albums, and that is literally something they've done with every single comeback. It's like 17 is one of those groups where when they release an album, you know it's going to be #1. Unless another major album group comes back like that same week, they're going to have another #1 album. That's the case for 17. They're going to have a #1 album. Another trend that we saw in 2016, though, is the trend of 17 and Twice always coming back at the same time. Like, they literally do it at least once a year from this point forward, I think. It happens all the time, and I've never understood why. The constant comebacks with Twice aside, though, 17 did have a very successful year in 2016. They just continued getting more and more popular with each and every comeback, and were growing at a very fast rate in terms of popularity, and it was very impressive. Into 2017 we go, and 2017 began with highlight promotions. So I've been skipping over all of the music videos they've been putting out for their non-titles just because I don't really care. They didn't really promote the song. It wasn't a big deal for me. Highlight gets to be an exception to that, primarily because they actually promoted it and I like the song. So they began the year with Highlight promotions. Highlight is the performance line song off of Going 17. And when they said they were promoting this song, I was so hype. Until they turned it into an OT13 song and cut off Chan's rap to give Hansel a rap. I know it's been 5 years. I'm still bitter and this is my time to complain, so you kind of had to listen to it. Following Highlight Promotion, 17 would go on their first Japanese tour. The tour sold approximately 50,000 tickets, which is pretty impressive when you take into account the fact that 17 had not released anything in Japan at this point in time. So 50,000 tickets sold, not a bad number, not at all. After that, they would also become the first group to get a second season on One Fine Day, which was when they released One Fine Day in Japan. It was, unsurprisingly, filmed while they were in Japan. 17 would return in May with the release of their fourth mini-album, like AL1, also known as Alone. And fun fact, I did not know how to properly pronounce this album name until 2020-ish. Pretty, not great considering I've been a stan since debut era and I didn't know how to pronounce this album. You can call me a fake fan, I don't care. But yeah, didn't know how to pronounce it. But the album did very well. It again sold more than their last one had. And the title track, Don't Wanna Cry, became one of their most successful songs even nowadays. It became, at the time, their song with the most music show wins and is currently their most viewed music video with, as of the time that I wrote these notes, 227 million views and 3.3 million likes. However, in spite of being so popular, I would say that Don't Wanna Cry is the least 17-y title track that they'd released up until that point. While all their prior title tracks had been the sort of banger pop vibes, this one a lot more chill, a lot more toned down, and I think my friend put it best actually. We were talking about the song back when it came out, and I still remember what she said. She was like, this song sounds like a song any group could release. It doesn't sound like a 17 song. It just sounds like a song. And I think that's the perfect way to describe this song. All of their prior titles had very much had that 17 sound to it. This one didn't have that. Following promotions for Don't Wanna Cry, 17 would release the very first episode of Going 17, the show, not the album, obviously. And this show is low-key like an integral part of 17, so we're gonna take a little tangent break to talk about it for a sec. So Going 17 is this reality variety show thing 17 has been posting on their channel, or maybe now it's on Weverse, I don't actually know, I don't watch the show anymore, but it's been going on since 2017. They release new episodes pretty much all the time, and it currently has over 170 episodes. Personally, I stopped watching it in like 2018-ish when they just got too much for me. Like I missed like a month worth of episodes. And at that point I was like, okay, like this is it, like we're done. So I have not been watching the more recent stuff, but my friend has, and she's actually been saying it's really good. So basically if you have a full month to kill and want to learn a lot about 17 very quickly-ish, go watch the show. So now that we have that out of the way, back to the timeline, if you will. Following the release of the first episode, and just while Going 17 was airing, 17 would go back on tour, this time going on a world tour, which included a little American leg that I was really tempted to go to because they were doing a show in New York back when I was in college on the East Coast. And I really wanted to go. Like, it was right after I'd seen them at KCON. I was just so here for it. I really wanted to see them. But it was my first weekend of college. I decided it wouldn't be a good idea. I literally did not have a place to stay in the city at the time. Like, I would have either had to get a hotel or somehow make my way back the 2 hours to campus after the concert. It was just not going to work out. However, in spite of my absence, the tour did extremely well. It sold over 200,000 tickets. It was just all around a success. And while they were on tour, they stopped by KCON LA in 2017, which is only relevant because I too was there and I got to see them. I know I just said it, but I wanted to repeat it. 17 would finish up the year with the release of their second full album, Teenage. This album was preceded by 4 music videos, one for Change Up, which was a leader line song, and then other music videos for the rap line, vocal line, and performance line songs. Then, on November 6th, the album itself was released, along with the title track, Clap. This song was like Don't Wanna Cry in the sense of it diverged from their banger pop sounds, but while Don't Wanna Cry kept it more chill, Clap decided to go in a more rocker, louder vibe. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I don't mind it, but like, not in love. I also will not deny, this came out in what I have dubbed my 17 exhaustion phase. And I basically missed this whole comeback. Like, I don't know the background lore for what happened, but I do know the album sold phenomenally well, so we love that. All right, retrospective time. 2017 saw the biggest shift, not so much in terms of popularity, but in terms of the albums themselves and the title track specifically. 2017 basically saw them diverging from their standard title track sound. And while this can be a little really risky, just because for a lot of groups, if you don't do your standard sound, especially when you're still this new, it can lead you to flop in a lot of ways. 17 was lucky in the sense that that didn't happen. Both of their comebacks did very well this year. Each album sold over 300,000 copies. Like, they were just phenomenally successful. And Teenage even went on to be one of the 10 best-selling albums of 2017. It was number 9, if you were wondering. But yeah, just as a whole, very successful year. However, that's actually not the most important change that I would say 17 saw. The most important change that I would claim is the fact that Newest actually got a lot more popular. And before you get really confused about why I'm talking about Newest, just like, hear me out, okay? So 2015 and 2016, and a lot of 2017, like the first half of it, Pledis' entire paycheck was pretty much dependent on 17. Like, yeah, Newest would have comebacks that would happen and sell like 20,000 copies if they were lucky, I think. Then Newest got popular. Like, the shift was so sudden in the sense that Newest literally went from selling nothing to selling hundreds of thousands of copies and having a song be number 1 on the Gaon charts. Like, it was a massive shift. And what this meant for 17, because we're going to keep it relevant, because this isn't a Newest video, what it meant for 17, though, was the fact that 17 now didn't have to be the only source of income for Pledis. Pledis, well, yeah, they did have other sources of income, again, pretty much solely dependent on 17, but now that Newest was able to make them money, they didn't have to only focus on 17, which is a very important shift that we will get to in the long run, because you will see, like, up until this point, they've been, like, working nonstop. From this point forward, they're able to take more breaks. They don't have to release a bunch of comebacks and go on a bunch of tours and just do a bunch of stuff. Like, they can relax, which is great. So in that vein of relaxation, 17 would actually have a pretty chill January. I couldn't find a ton of stuff that they actually did beyond like pretty normal beginning of the year stuff like award shows. So we don't really have a ton to talk about there. But February, they had a lot. So get ready for that. First, at the beginning of February, 17 would host their second official fan meet, this time seeing about 20,000 people or so come through. So that was great. Then, on February 5th, 17 would kick off the next season, I guess, of Going 17, this one called Going 17 Spin-Off. The episodes came out more or less every other week, so just keep that in mind the entire year. Also on February 5th, 17 would release Director's Cut. This is technically a special album, and it's not technically a repackage, but like, I've always viewed it as a repackage. It has all the songs off of Teenage, along with some, like, it's very much giving repackage, but for technical, historical reasons, let's say, it is officially a special album. This album, again, sold very well, unsurprisingly, and had the title track Thanks. Thanks is what I would call their least poppy song, at least to date. While Don't Wanna Cry and Clap had continued to steer away from their sort of pop sounds, they still very much were pop. This song, not so sure. She's a lot darker, but personally, I was really here for it. February 2018 also saw Mingyu start hosting Inkigayo, so he would do that until October 2019. Just keep that in mind. Great. Finally, for February, 17 would kick off their second Japanese tour, this time bringing in an audience of over 110,000 people. And again, they had not released anything in Japan, so these numbers for their crowds are extremely impressive. Pretty much as soon as they were done on tour, 17 would debut their first official subunit with Busuk Soon, or BSS. It was made up of Hoshi, Seokmin, and Seungkwan, and they debuted with the digital single Just Do It. They promoted that song for about a week and then just moved on and haven't had a comeback since, so I don't think we're ever gonna get one, and we as a society have moved on, so I'm gonna move on. Speaking of Seungkwan though, in May of 2018, he would join the cast of Unexpected Q. I have never seen an episode of this show. I don't know what it is beyond the fact it's a variety show, so that's all I can really tell you about it. It's a variety show that Seungkwan is in. It was his first variety show. I will not be mentioning all the others he's been on, but this is the first one, so it gets a little special shout out. Great. Also in May, 17 would officially debut in Japan with the mini album We Make You. This album was pretty successful for a Japanese debut album from what I can tell. It had the title track Call 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 and sold over 100,000 copies, getting it a gold certification in Japan. Summer 2017 saw the release of 17's fifth mini album, You Make My Day, which is right here. From this point forward, I do have a copy of every album, so you can get hyped for that if this has been an important factor for you in watching this video. I do now have all the albums. But anyway, this album would become their first to be certified platinum in Korea, simply because none of their pre-2018 albums were eligible, and director's cut just didn't sell enough to get certified. The album was led with the title track Oh My, which was a step back towards their more poppier sound, but instead of going back towards banger pop vibes, they did take a different poppy vein, if you know what I mean. Like, if you know, you know. That's the only way I can describe it. I'm sorry if that didn't make sense. Following the release of You Make My Day, 17 would go back on tour. They performed 4 shows in Seoul before the album's release, but after they finished promoting, they would just go to perform all around Asia. But after that, they had a pretty chill rest of the year. Like, they didn't really do a ton aside from your standard year-end stuff. Alright, let's do our 2018 retrospective. So, like I'd said at the end of 2017, you can see in 2018 a big effect of Pledis not being so reliant on 17. They gave them a very long break at the end of the year, and they also had a pretty good sized break at the beginning of the year when they weren't doing a ton, which was a big shift since in the past. 17 getting like a multi-month break, that wasn't gonna happen. Like, 17 was necessary to keep Pledis' lights on. So now that they had Newest, you can see them being a lot less reliant on 17, which is great for the members probably, since they probably weren't as exhausted. Aside from that, though, 17 would continue to just get more popular with each release, getting more and more album sales, and each song just getting popular. Like, they were just getting more fans with every single comeback, even as they continued experimenting with the sounds of their titles. On to 2019, our final normal year. 17 would start the year off pretty quickly with the release of their 6th mini album, You Made My Dawn. It's technically a follow-up to You Make My Day, but they aren't really connected all that much, unless there was going to be a third one and they were going to do a trilogy moment, which they didn't, unless you count You Make Me, but like, whatever. You Made My Dawn. That came out in January. It had the title track Home. Home is, to this day, still their most awarded song on music shows. It has 10 wins in total, which is pretty impressive considering how well it charted big picture. But also, the album would go on to be certified double platinum and was, again, one of the best-selling albums of the year. Like, that's pretty standard from this point forward, if you couldn't tell. Quick mention that in March, 17 started their latest run of Going 17 episodes, which notably saw the shift from vlogger-style content to more variety show-based content, so that's cool. Next up, we have the release of Happy Ending, which is 17's first Japanese single. It came out at the end of May. It topped the Oricon daily singles chart and was certified platinum in Japan. Just all around very successful. In June, we would get our first solo single with Ming Hao's Dreams Come True. Yes, June did have Simple, but it wasn't a single, so it doesn't count. But this song, it had a performance choreography style video thing, not an official music video though, and he didn't promote it, so we just kind of move along. In August, 17 would release Hit as a digital single and pre-release for their 3rd full album. The song is very much a move towards their banger pop sounds once again, and I am personally not complaining at all. That month, they would also kick off their 2nd world tour, Ode to You, with 3 shows in Seoul. Following the concert on September 19th, 17 would officially release their 3rd full album, An Ode. This album was led with the title track Fear, which, in my opinion, their worst song to date, at least in terms of titles. The album would, however, sell phenomenally well, and I want to talk about that a little bit more in the retrospective, so just keep that in mind for the next minute or two while I'm talking. But yeah, phenomenally well. The song, though, She Didn't Do Great. It is one of their worst performing songs on the charts in the past several years, so yeah, society as a whole seemed to agree with me. Following promotions for An Ode, Mingyu would stop hosting Inkigayo, and 17 would just go out on tour, which is what they did for pretty much the rest of the year. They would just be touring, so yeah. Retrospective time. So 2019, one of the biggest shifts and the one that I really want to talk about is the 17 album sales explosion. So 17, as I've been saying this entire video pretty much, they've always had really solid album sales. 2019, though, especially with An Ode, saw the shift from amazing album sales to god-tier album sales, specifically, again, with An Ode. An Ode was the 2nd highest selling album of 2019, second only to Map of the Soul Persona. It sold over 850,000 copies just that year. It has since gone on to sell over 1 million. It just, as a whole, was the moment that 17 really became that bitch for album sales. That's the only way I can put it. New decade, here we go! I hope the 2020s are great. I say like I don't live in 2022 and know exactly how it went. But anyway, 2020 started off with just more touring, specifically in the US, specifically where I live and I got to see them. It was a moment after which I lost my mind and bought every version of An Ode and every version of You Made My Dawn for reasons that continue to baffle me. One day I'll sell them, we haven't reached that day yet. Anyway, their tour, however, would get cut short for relatively obvious reasons. So in addition to canceling the last few shows of their NOTU tour, they would also cancel their Japanese tour. Normally, I wouldn't just talk about it, but I do want to mention the fact that their Japanese tour was meant to host their first show at the Tokyo Dome, which, if you know anything, like, you know the Tokyo Dome is not an easy venue to book. Like, you have to be huge to book the Tokyo Dome. 17 was able to book it for a couple of concerts, so, like, that was very impressive, even though the show did end up getting canceled. April 1st of 2020, 17 would release their second Japanese single, Fallen Flower. This song would do extremely well. The single again topped the charts. It was certified double platinum, just all around a moment. We have a couple of things to get through for May. The first one being the release of Minghao's second solo single, Falling Down. This came out on May 4th, and the Star Wars fan in me feels obligated to mention Happy Star Wars Day. Also, in May, 17 would start releasing Hit the Road, which was a documentary-style thing that they released on their YouTube channel with some behind-the-scenes content and backstage content from their Ode to Your World tour. Our last thing for May, while not specifically 17 relevant, but is relevant big picture, is that HYBE would go on to purchase Pledis Entertainment, HYBE, aka Big Hit. I use them interchangeably, so, like, if that triggers you for some reason, sucks to suck. I'm never gonna stop. They're big, like, they were Big Hit when I got into BTS. They're a big hit to me even now. So yeah, HYBE would purchase Pledis. Pledis allegedly and operates as an independent label under HYBE. I don't know how true that is, so it doesn't seem super relevant to 17, but I do want to point it out just so you have the context. June saw the release of 17's seventh mini album, Hangare. No, I did not put it together. I am not doing manual labor to build my album. If I buy my album from you, I want it to come assembled. I know this rant is stupid, but sometimes Pledis' album things for 17 piss me off to no end, and I want to rant about it to someone, so that someone gets to be you, human, watching this video. Either way, though, the album would do phenomenally well. It went on to be the third highest selling album of 2020, again, only behind BTS, and was their first album to officially break 1 million copies sold. The album was preceded with the song My on June 12th before the rest of the album came out on the 22nd. And it was led with the title track Left and Right. This song was very popular and would go on to get 17 their first top 10 single on the Gaon charts, peaking at number 8. It is also very much a return to banger pop, which I am totally here for. At the end of August, 17 would go on to host a fan meet, which for obvious reasons was online, and then about a week later, they would release their second mini album, 24H, which was just vastly successful. Again, topped charts, certified platinum. It became their fourth consecutive #1 album and made them one of the only groups. There is a handful who have done it, but 17 is one of the few who have had 4 consecutive albums top the charts for an international group. In September, they would also release their special mini album, Semicolon. This album already broke 1 million copies with pre-orders and also had member versions, which is unrelated, but personally something that I hate because I hate member versions, especially for a group this big because you're just bound to upset people. Either way, though, the album did very well. The title track, Home Run, was also their first full return to banger pop vibes. I loved it, I was here for it, and it just did well all around. That's pretty much it for 2020, so I guess it's retrospective time. If you watched my Astro video, you'll know I spent their 2020 retrospective praising them for being able to stay booked and busy during a pandemic. 17, not so much. That's not to say they didn't do anything, but they were not coping super well with the inability to tour. They did still have Going 17, and they were doing shit, but, like, in comparison, like, 17 toured every single year since 2016. They did not do that in 2020 for obvious reasons, and you can kind of see that they didn't really know how to cope in the same way that other groups were able to sort of pivot and shift into a non-touring era. That being said, what they did do was extremely successful because both of their albums broke 1 million copies. Their Japanese comebacks did extremely well. As a whole, what they did was extremely successful. I just kind of wish they did a little bit more, if you know what I mean. 2021 would begin with 17's US television debut. They would go on The Late Show for a certain man whose name alone makes me angry, so I'm not going to say it. But they would also go on The Kelly Clarkson Show, and I like Kelly Clarkson. They performed Left and Right, and I was so here for it. In February, June would become the second member to get a solo release with Silent Boarding Gate. He didn't promote the song, so we're just gonna keep going. In April, we start right off with Hoshi releasing his solo single, Spider. This song, he even got to promote it, first of all, which is new, but also the song is dark and sexy, and I am to this day still obsessed with it a year later. A week later, Minghao would have his third solo single, Side by Side, which was his first Korean solo single, so we love that for him. Then, on April 21st, 17 would release their third Japanese single, Not Alone. This song, again, topped charts, certified double platinum, all around successful. On May 18th, 17 would announce their Power of Love project thing, which was to gear up for their 8th mini album. 2 days after that, June would release another solo single entitled Fall in Love, and following that, Mingyu and Wonwoo would collaborate with EHI to release a digital single, Bittersweet. The song, in my opinion, is nothingness, but whatever. On June 18th, their 8th mini album, Your Choice, would officially be released. It was led with the title track Ready to Love, which was, again, full banger pop vibes, totally here for it. The album was also very successful, selling over 1.4 million copies just that year, and again, just being one of the best-selling albums of 2021. Quick little note that in July, all the members of 17 would renew their contracts with Pledis Entertainment, making them to date the only group to actually renew their contracts since HYBE has bought their company. Yes, I'm being shady, I'm allowed to be bitter. 2 groups that I really liked have disbanded under HYBE's watch, so you know what, let me have it. 17 wouldn't really do a ton until October, when they would release their 9th mini album, Attica, which had the title track, Rock With You. We're gonna start with the song first this time, because I feel like I always start with the album. This song fucking slaps. I love this song with all my heart and soul. It is banger pop at its finest. It is one of my favorite 17 title tracks to date, and it is also their highest peaking song, peaking at number 6 on the Gaon charts. As for the album, She would become their first album to break 2 million copies sold. It was the 4th highest selling album of 2021, falling only behind NCT Dream, NCT 127, and BTS. Closing out the year, 17 would release their 4th single album, Power of Love. The song does have a Korean version if that is relevant to you and you only listen to Korean versions of songs. I don't know, you do you, but it does have that if you were wondering. The album, again, number 1, certified platinum, just all around hit. Alright, retrospective time. 2021 didn't really see a ton of shifts from 2020 in the big picture of things beyond the full commitment to banger pop. But other than that, the only big difference is that they would be one of the only groups to break 2 million copies. But given the way album sales are trending up, and 17 has pretty much consistently been one of the top selling groups, that's not that wild to me. Once it becomes more prevalent to break 3 million copies, I'm sure they will be one of those groups as well. The other big difference that we can see is just a continuation again of 2020, where they didn't really do a ton during the pandemic because they couldn't tour. Into the present year of 2022 we go. We would begin the year very early on the 3rd of January when Jihoon would release his solo single, Ruby. And if I had a Coke Zero, I'd be drinking it right now. If you understood that reference, hooray for you. I love that for all of us involved. Either way, he would promote the song for like 30 seconds and then that would be it. Pretty standard for a 17 solo at this point, and we're just gonna keep going. On April 15th, 17 would release their first English language single with Darling. This song, I'm just gonna say she's no dynamite, she's no butter, she's not even a permission to dance moment, and leave it at that. If you understood, then you'll know what I mean. Also in April, 17 would release their movie entitled 17 Power of Love, the movie. I truly wish the name had been more creative. Like, they could have literally just taken out the name 17 and I think it would have been vastly superior, but whatever. Again, not part of HYBE's, or now HYBE's, previously, I don't know, I'm not part of a marketing department, so my opinion is meaningless, but that's just how I feel. Either way, the movie contains some behind the scenes content, some interviews, that type of thing. Moving our way even closer to the present, in May, 17 would host their first in-person fan meet in Japan. It would be their first in-person anything in over 2 years, unsurprisingly, and was attended by lots and lots of fans, I believe roughly 60,000. Now looking to the future, on May 27th, in just under 2 weeks from when I film this, I'm filming this on the 15th, 17 will be releasing their 4th full album entitled Face the Sun. There's not a ton of information that I currently have about it, like they haven't released a teaser to my knowledge that I can tell what the song will sound like, but that is their next main event. All right, that is all I have for you. That is the history of 17. Please comment down below if I missed anything that I should have added, if you want to correct anything. Like, if I made a mistake, do not hesitate to comment and correct me. I promise I won't be offended. I just love knowing the weird lore of K-pop groups. I can do this for so many groups. I really will continue doing this because people seem to really like my Astro one. If people like this one, I will happily continue the trend. But aside from commenting, you can also like and subscribe if you want to or don't. I will be okay either way. You can also follow me on Twitter at S_album_reviews. I will link that in the description along with just a bunch of 17 album reviews that I've done. If you want to watch those, you totally can. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Bye!